Hello, my lovely friends in YouTube land. If you caught our first interview here at the Guiding Star Astrology channel with Ernst Wilhelm, you'll know what a fascinating, amazing person Ernst is. And so I hope you enjoyed this second part of our interview exploring the astrology of well-being. And so without any further ado, let's dive right into part 2 of my interview with Ernst Wilhelm. Well, here we are, everybody, back with part 2 of our discussion, and we're going to be looking at medical astrology with Ernst. And Ernst, your early years as a naturopath would have prepared you very well for combining the two ideas, like, you know, health and well-being with astrological work. Is that what led you into sort of doing a lot of medical astrology?
I always did some, and I always would, give nutritional advice as a natural part of being an astrologer. But honestly, I was never very heavily into the medical astrology. And then maybe this is why it's related to the zodiac. Well, we talked about zodiac first. Then in like 2006, when I was testing all this stuff and amongst a big crisis, I'm like, gosh, what am I going to teach? I don't even know what to teach. How do I even teach it? Okay, I need something I can teach where I cannot deal with the zodiac thing and show examples with the zodiac, the sidereal zodiac, that I'm not sure I believe in anymore. Because the results were looking not so good for the sidereal zodiac. And so, and this was after a year and a half of testing, and I had to come up with something. I just didn't feel right about teaching with the examples with the sidereal yet. So I'm like, what can I do that will, be a class I can do where can avoid this issue until I finish my full research? Because I really, 2 years was what I mostly was doing. And I said, I can do an astrological anatomy course. I'm going to break down all the medical science into the planets and da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And so then what I did, I threw myself into working and developing all that, testing all that. And that's something I was able to do. And so I taught that class as and that was like my only medical astrology class I've taught. And that was about basically creating definitions. This is the circulatory system. This is the skeletal system. This is the procreation system. This is digestive system. And then every system has these organs ruled by these different planets. So every system has a different organ ruled by a different planet. And I basically broke it down in a very scientific way. And it's a great system. If you want to see, where's the problem at? What's broken? What organ, what system, etc. It gives you all the information for knowing that kind of stuff. Okay. But with astrology, I've always been much more involved in finding okayness, essentially.
What do you mean by okayness? That's a good word.
Basically, I think we're all motivated to be astrologers because there's something really wrong with our lives or ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not able to have peace without crunching on these astrology books while everyone else is out there enjoying their lives. There's something wrong with that.
It's incredible
right?
how many people discover astrology in their Saturn Dasha because of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, because it's hard, and you start questioning yourself and wondering about yourself and not feeling good about yourself. And so I've always been more into trying to understand the human being through astrology, because that's what I had to struggle with. My struggle was figuring out my convoluted psyche, of having a crazy father raised by a Nazi, and my father was a Nazi with really rigid, strict paternal law, who didn't give my mom any credit or thought as any person who could make any decisions. My mom was more capable than him. He was just that kind of person. So I grew up with not ideal environmental conditions.
Can I ask, were you in Germany or was that?
No, I was in America.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he was a Nazi in America.
Well, he wasn't a practicing Nazi, but he believed in Aryan supremacy. He believed in he doesn't like Jews. He actually, I guess I don't mind talking about my background. People might be judgmental, but he was a university professor, and he was so good that when he was in his 30s, he was the only physicist invited to conventions where everyone else was in their 50s or older.
Wow.
But he would create drama and trouble on work over his beliefs, and it got to the point where no university in America would hire him.
Right. Yeah.
And he had to actually go work in Saudi Arabia, and they were happy to hire my dad, you
Wow.
know? So it's like, so it's like when you grow up with that kind of stuff, and then you grow up with European parents who have very different ideas from the American culture that's around you, it's like, where do you fit? Can't really fit with dad, right? Don't really, that's really not my role model. Can't really fit with all these people because I'm being raised so differently. We don't
Yeah.
eat the same food. I don't eat out of cans, I don't eat Cocoa Puffs. My mom actually
Thank
cooks
God for
breakfast.
that.
We don't eat sliced bread. We bake bread. So it was like, really, where do you go? Where you go is you start feeling like what the heck's going on with me and who am I? So for me, it's always about finding okayness ultimately with oneself. Didn't know it, but I was so mad. I didn't know it for 30 years. I didn't know it until my Saturn return of studying astrology came around, which happened 2 years ago, that my motivation for crunching all that astrology was just to be okay enough with myself to let myself live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's serious. And it all started with my first girlfriend breaking up with me after tongue lashing me. This girl was too smart. She could just cut me up into little slices with her tongue, decimate me, spit me out, and make me say, "Sure, I'll do that, and then I'll be back to love you forever." You
She
know?
wasn't the one for you then.
Um, and
Absolutely.
it was ruthless. And astrology helped me like become okay with myself.
Mm.
It helped me understand her. It helped me understand also I'm okay with myself after really a super hyper critical, extremely traumatized first relationship with a woman with a Saturn moon conjunction in the seventh house, which is
Oh.
really painful for
Mm.
women.
Mm.
I mean, this girl, before she met me, she was engaged to a billionaire and she ran away from the altar.
Oh,
So
wow.
she had trauma, and I'm just first guy falling in love, trying to do everything right, and everything I do just sends the girl into outer space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I was not feeling good about myself at the end of that relationship or my life. And astrology helped me in 2 weeks. I'm like, wow, okay, got it. And I'm feeling okayness. But I just basically was doing astrology to be okay. I wasn't doing astrology because I had some weird disease that I couldn't figure out. If
Mm.
I wasn't feeling good, I just fast or do a raw food for a while and everything's good.
Yeah.
Exercise, sun, raw food, and fasting. There's no other, I don't care about. Why do I need to know all that stuff when I can do those and feel good physically? So physical was never a problem for me to manage, really.
But you
It
also
was
had
more
that good, I mean, admittedly, a difficult childhood, but a good foundation with health in that regard, like with the
for
things.
sure. We
Yeah.
walked everywhere. We were a very active family. My mom walked everywhere. We walked everywhere, barefoot. It was the 70s. So um until the late 70s, I had those signs, no shoes, no
No
service. Right? Until
service,
then, we just
yeah.
going with no shoes. So, so I have always done medical astrology on the side, but it's never been a huge point of focus. Now, that was the only time I really focused exclusively on medical astrology for a lengthy period of time. Okay. And there's great information. I really, so all the medical organ systems and things like that, the physiology, I basically relate that to the planets and the signs.
Mhm.
Then I also relate the meridians, the Chinese meridians, to the signs. The elements, of course, are related to the planets. And of course, there's the dosha. So I talk about the traditional part, the traditional healing methods from Asia, and also the modern stuff, of the way they've organized and see everything working together. Um, and I think I've always felt like that was a really good class. I refer to that manual all the time. It's a very detailed manual. I refer to it all the time still, years later. I think it's a very 18 years later. I think it's good work. But what I've learned is that to me, none of that stuff matters anymore
The
because
medical structure and
because to me, why do I want to do all that work to say this is what's wrong with your organ when it's not going to change anything?
yeah. So
You know,
are
I
do you align with the idea that what is going on inside of you is
exactly.
causational of our medical problems? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, sure, if I didn't have my knowledge of health and psychology, if I was just a predictive astrologer,
Mm.
I would be predicting, like I've seen great astrologers say, hey, you've got a problem, you've got cancer in your ear, you need to go to the doctor. And they're like, oh, I'm fine. No, you need to go right now. They go, yeah, he has a tumor growing in his ear, and an astrologer saves his life, early discovery, Wow. You know, but to me, I would never tell someone to go to the doctors, first of all, unless you're going to die within 24 hours. I think there's a better solution. And and what I found in this age, in this world, unless you're living in some third world country where some things are really backwards, our health problems are the result of our emotions.
Hmm.
We don't, unless you're living in a place that's just so polluted, or there is no food, or there's radiation toxology, where there's an environment that's actually damaging you faster than your immune system can actually build up. But even if we live in a polluted city these days, we have plenty of fresh food supply. Our immune system can manage all that. It's remarkable what our immune systems can
Oh.
handle on a physical level.
Mm.
But the moment our emotions are out of sync, we can go from feeling good to bad physically in a second.
Yeah.
Physical problems I struggled with, I was never able to completely overcome was chronic back pain. That would sometimes leave me crawling on the ground for 3 weeks. Um, Extreme toothaches that would make me want to blow my head off. That no matter how much opiums the doctor would give me would stop the pain. I'm like maddening toothaches
Mm.
and um, and allergies.
Allergies is such an interesting one, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And then I realized that it's how we're handling our emotions. Our emotions are coming up all the time. And from moment to moment, we're handling or managing those emotions in a certain way.
Yeah.
My way was go away, I didn't notice you.
Yeah. Stuff it
Now
down.
that's a very
Mhm.
unhealthy way, but it kept me from my dad. It kept my dad from getting mad at me when I was growing up. So I became very, very good at it.
Good.
Okay. So then I started having a severe toothache. At the same time, I was getting a dish out of the dishwasher, and I just getting a dish out of the top rack, I was pushing a feeling away, and my back blew out, and I fell to the ground, couldn't move for 20 minutes. I couldn't even squirm 4 feet away to get my phone, which was on the phone floor 4 feet from me, to call for someone to come help
Yeah.
me. Like, shush, I don't know where my wife was. I was yelling, but she couldn't hear me. It's a big house.
Yeah.
Or maybe she went on a hike. I don't know. So I'm just laying there trying to get to where I could even move at all. And that was the worst experience I've ever had, where I could not even move. And I started thinking, this is ridiculous. There's no reason for me to have teeth like this, to have these tooth pains. I always told myself it must be because my mom had them.
So there
And so it
wasn't
must
actually
be
anything wrong with your teeth, or the dentist didn't pull teeth or anything because
Oh,
of
no,
it?
I had teeth. I had lots of teeth repairs,
Hmm.
but there was never anything wrong with my teeth. And it looked like it, but there never really was.
Wow.
Okay. So what I realized was that it's impossible for something wrong with my teeth. I get plenty of sun. I'm active. I eat all my nutrients. It's just not possible. And the fact that my mom had bad teeth, I've always said, well, it's genetic.
Yeah.
Okay. I said, no, fuck the genetic excuse. I'm not buying into that.
Yeah.
I said, I have pain inside of me. It's been in there since day I was born, and it's coming through the tooth. And and this was a toothache that the opiates were not helping. The heavy
Mm.
drugs were not doing it. I don't like to take those, but when you have like the severe root canal type tooth pain, it's like, should I take the bullet or the opioids?
That's
It's like,
right.
you know, and I'm like, okay, I I just let it out. Just let the pain out. There's nothing wrong with my tooth. There's nothing wrong with my tooth. I just said, let the pain flow. Pay attention to any feelings that arise. And I just did that. And within a short while, I was able to manage the tooth pain. So I started this whole thing of trying to become aware of the emotions. I was
Yeah.
automatically put it into the junk drawer without even examining them.
Mhm.
And it was a full-time job. And my tooth was so bad, I had a huge abscess. I was jumping up and down for several nights saying, there's nothing wrong with my tooth,
Oh,
even though my face was swollen. There's nothing wrong with my tooth. Just let the pain out, let the emotions out, let the feelings out. And I was very stuck on this. I couldn't get over it. My back, I got over. My back, I did the same thing to the back, fixed the back. I said, there's nothing wrong with my back. I don't care that I broke it when I was 13. That's not a valid excuse. 13, okay, it could hurt when I broke it at 13, but there's no reason to hurt now. Bones don't hurt after they knit, you know?
mhm.
There's nothing wrong with my back. I'm just letting the pain out. And I started becoming observant how little things would happen that would cause me to just push an emotion down, and
Oh,
instantly tooth would flare out, back would get stiff, or an allergy would show up.
yeah.
And then I would go, wait a minute, what did I just skip? Let's step back. What did I throw away? Then I'd say, oh, I'm mad because of this. And I'd say, well, because you're mad because you're envisioning this possible future happening that you can't escape. I said,
Yeah.
if that actually happens, I can just say no, thank you, and walk away. I don't have to be entrapped here.
Yeah.
Immediately, the pain goes away. So I started working with really becoming really aware of my emotions, and my body became like the signal of when I wasn't.
Mm.
And I realized all my problems were the result of my body saying, you're in pain, and me not emotionally allowing myself to know it. It was
Yeah.
all repressed emotions.
Yeah.
And so I started working with that, and I was still stuck on the tooth, but I did something to ask my unconscious what I needed to do. It said, do the certain meditation. I did the meditation on the second night. It brought me to a place of where I had this huge emotional release, like very deep emotional release that made me real that the pain was actually not even it wasn't even it was a spiritual pain. It
Mm.
wasn't even, it was a K2 pain, a spiritual pain. The spiritual pain is the pain we experience in the womb.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so with
Okay. Because then we're
Kato
still
in
with the
that
source.
position, it was
I,
pain induced
no,
by
it
the
was
sun.
emotional memories from being in the womb
Mm.
came up. And see, the thing is that we don't remember what happened to us with our intellect. I don't remember anything before like 5. Some
Yeah.
people remember things at 3, but most people 3, they start remembering things. I'm like a late bloomer. I don't remember anything till 5, probably because my Mercury is low in Shambhala.
Wow.
But, you know, we don't remember pictures, images, and stuff, but our emotional body remembers every feeling we've ever had.
Yeah.
And so we have emotional memories of things that are impacting our lives now that we have no memory of. And that includes emotional memories of the womb. And those memories are not necessarily ours, they can be the of our mother.
Others.
The
Yes.
majority of emotional memories that are hurting us, though, that we're, of emotional memories we're carrying, some it could be at different times. It depends what's going on. I'm a strong K2 person, so we got to look at the womb. When a person has a Saturn moon or a starved moon or shamed moon, a difficult moon, we know it's in the first year of life. And so we can tell when the emotional memories were developed that are causing the person to deal with their emotions in an unhealthy way and also to live their life in a way that ends up being a frustrating experience.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then we have those frustrations. What do we do with them? We repress them.
We do.
We can't just go and start freaking out and yelling how upset and hurt and angry we are, right? They're going to lock us up.
Yeah.
No one's going to want to be our friend. We got to behave, right? And so those emotions, that every emotion that we don't allow into our awareness manifests as a disease
Mm, mm.
of some type.
So,
And then
well, I was just going to ask, how do you what's your opinion of the work of, say, Louise Hay, or there's another book called The Body is the
all
Barometer of the
how
Soul?
yeah, I thought of writing a book along those lines called The Body Omen. Yes. Depending what's happening in your body, you can read the picture. You can do a reading on that. Someone gets in an accident. Okay, what'd you break? What side did you get hit on? Where were you? Oh, you were at a graveyard. Okay, that's important, you know.
Yeah.
So all the details of an accident or any illness, we can actually read as an omen of the person's psyche.
Mm.
Why? Because it's not happening on a physical level in this age. In this age, it's happening on an emotional diseases manifest on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Um, so then Shrishti had a book that she'd had for over a year when I didn't know it, called The Great Pain Deception
Oh,
by Stephen Osanovich. Stephen O. You could just search Stephen O. And this guy basically and when he was 14, he was told that he had a destroyed back and had to be very careful not play any sports, that one bad fall, one bad crunch in football, and he could be in the wheelchair for life.
mm.
And he went through life with severe chronic pain of back, leading to all kinds of other weird stuff, including problems with his eyes.
Oh,
And when you read his story, the travesties that have happened to this guy, I mean, he's had some of the nightmarish stuff happen to him in his adulthood. And he was just taking it in, frustrated, suppressing that, trying to move forward, marching forward when he wants to go kill someone who kind of deserves it,
yeah.
And, and he gets worse and worse. By the time his Rahu maturation comes, he's completely invalid. He can't even he can't even sit in a chair to read a book. He goes to the bookstore, starts doing self-help. He's like just falling over at the bottom of the bookshelf, just reading these books. He's in abject pain, can hardly move around. And and within 18 months, basically doing the same thing I did, he healed all of his chronic pain.
Wow.
And like me now, he'll lift anything he wants as heavy he wants. I always did. I never paid attention to, oh, don't move or don't do this. I'm like, my back hurts. I'm going to go build my stairs with 80-pound blocks. Now I'm feeling better. And I learned that we give power to our unconscious mind to use our bodies as a center of pain and disease. And we
Absolutely.
justify it. I'm gluten free.
Yeah.
I'm this, I'm that. No, you're not. You're not dealing with your emotions in a
Yeah.
healthy enough way. And so your unconscious needs an outlet
Yeah.
of pain. And you saying, oh, I'm gluten intolerant, this unconscious says, okay, I can use that. All this pain that you're not listening to, I can put there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I was doing to my back and my teeth and my allergies.
Mm.
Because we have to feel our suffering. And if we don't feel the pain, we don't have to act on our emotions. In fact, most of our emotions shouldn't be acted on,
Yeah.
just like most of our thoughts should not be acted on. But we need to feel our emotions because our emotions are communicating to us
Exactly.
important things we need to know. And then we can use our wisdom to say, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
But we're not supposed to act on every emotion. That creates chaos, that's childish and creates chaos. And we can't act on our thoughts because that makes for a ruthless life.
Yeah.
We have to use these things, and the higher part of ourself has to say, what am I going to do with this information? But we can't walk through life with not listening to a bunch of information that we need to know about ourselves. And that's what we do on an emotional level. And then we find ourselves with all kinds of ailments.
Mm.
And then we get a convenient excuse, oh, it's the gluten, it's the this, it's the that. And it's really interesting. There's always a fad disease. In the 50s,
Yes.
60s, everyone had ulcers.
Yeah.
And in movies, they're all taking, oh, my ulcer. Oh, you're going to bother. They're always making ulcer jokes in old movies. Oh, yeah,
That's right.
my wife is just, like, how's your wife? Oh, she's raking my ulcer rage. It's always the ulcer, always the ulcer. Then they discovered that ulcers are not caused by stress, they're caused by bacteria. All of a sudden, ulcers were not a valid excuse. So then people started getting chronic back pain. Chronic back pain's in, but now chronic back pain's not the big fad. It's gluten, evil
Yeah.
gluten.
Hmm.
There's always a fad going on that it's socially acceptable to have your body exhibit this pain.
Yeah. Isn't that
So we have
interesting?
to tell ourselves there's nothing wrong with me. And that one tooth that was in severe pain, I didn't lose it. I didn't need to get it treated. See what happens is when you are suppressing emotions, energy and life force gets withdrawn from a certain part of your body. And now that body starts to decay and die, and it creates a real disease. But there's nothing wrong in that body part. You see, the
Mm.
wrong is in the emotion.
Uh-huh.
And so as soon as we allow the emotions to be free, the life force returns to that body part and it restores itself.
That's so beautiful, isn't it? How the body
You
can
know,
do that.
so
Can I?
now when it comes to, go
I'm
ahead.
just going to ask, so we've talked a little bit about external things affecting our body, such as the guy who had the accident at 14 and hurt his back and everything. My father got rheumatic fever when he was 16 and spent a year in hospital and has had shocking heart issues ever since. So what do you see as the role of the external influences that then cause ongoing problems? Is that because we haven't processed that initial emotion
It
around that
to
that
go, yes, good question. You have to go case by case. There
mm,
are actual physical causes of disease,
mm,
but it's not even 10%. I would say it's 1% of the problems that are out there.
mhm, mhm.
Only 1% of people go to doctors who get a physical treatment of any type, including acupuncture and all this and Ayurveda of any type,
Yeah,
actually should be going there. They should be going to a psychotherapist.
yeah. What about hypnosis as a therapy?
Yes, wonderful,
Mm,
because it's in the unconsciousness. See,
yeah,
the reason we're responding a certain way with our emotions, because our unconscious goes, this is the safe way for me to deal with my emotions.
mm,
Okay. Because our experiences growing up teach us this is the safe way to deal with our emotions, right?
yeah,
So we all develop different ways. And then we have a permissible, oh, I'm allowed to experience physical pain under this circumstance.
yeah,
And these circumstances can be anything. It can be, oh, I got a chill. Now I'm going to get a cold. Some families tell their kids, oh, don't go outside. It's cold. You'll get a chill. My dad grew up in World War II, starving, hunting rabbits in the winter so he wouldn't die. My dad, it's snowing and he's swimming in the lake, and there's snow there. So there was never this idea that, oh, if you get a chill, you'll get sick.
yeah.
I lived in Montana. I have frozen my ass off. I've never gotten sick from it because that's not a permissible way for me to be ill. Okay. But I was very good as a kid to get ill when I didn't want to go to school for something. Oh, I could get sick so fast because for some emotional reason I didn't want to go to school. Oh, I got a fever and a sore throat, you know,
Yeah.
and my mom would stay home. So that was permissible for my emotions knew than my family that if we had a fever, we didn't have to do anything except lay in bed.
Mhm.
So that's how I that worked in my family. Oh yeah, you don't. So if my emotions really didn't want to go to school, they knew all they had to do was get a fever, and I would get a fever and not go to school.
Yeah. Well, something that was really interesting in my life, and I mentioned it because you said you had allergies as well. Growing up, I had shocking hay fever and reactive allergies to cats and things like that. And then when I left home, they stopped, no more. And it wasn't until years later I was reading about this, and apparently allergies can exhibit when you feel like you're in a very controlled environment, where you can't express yourself, where you can't be free. And I grew up in a very religious environment. My mother, had certain expectations and we better meet them. Nothing like what you probably had with your father, but similarly controlled. And it was just so fascinating to me that for no other reason that than that, when I left home, I was no longer under that control. And so my allergies stopped. And it's just so
Yeah,
fascinating. I love
but
this
you
stuff.
didn't have to repress to survive
That's
anymore.
right. That's right. Exactly. It could be myself. Precisely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you could start living more as yourself. You bet, and it's exactly how it works. And
Mm.
um, Allergies are extremely painful when they're severe, as you know. They're one of the worst pains you can experience. And the last time I had an allergy hiccup, I was driving in a car with some friends who were visiting, and we are going to Sedona. And all of a sudden, I start getting an allergy, and I'm looking around, where's the pollen? Where's the pollen? I'm like, no, forget where's the pollen. Um, I usually don't have pollen allergies, but I'm trying to blame it on something. And more of me,
Yeah.
it was more cats and dogs. I'm like, no, not where's the pollen, but what were you just feeling that you
Mm.
under the rug and stomped on, you know? And I took 30 seconds, found it, allowed it to exist, allergies cleared up instantly,
Yeah.
like
So do you find
instantly.
any of these things correspond to the astrological components, like back pain
Yeah.
issue with Leo or the sun or something like that?
Okay. So when I wanted to finish answering your question fully, you said, how
Sure.
much is it physical? Like your dad had rheumatic fever.
Yeah.
Okay. There are actual causes of physical disease. We have this karma to get stuff sometimes. Now, but like I said, most of the what we're talking about is the results of karma. Karma is an action. If I take the actions of repressing my emotions, the results of that are physical illness.
Mm.
You see? Most diseases are the result of not doing the right karma with our emotions, not doing the right thing with our emotions. Okay? Now, things do happen though. But the more I do it, right now I'm at 99%, maybe 1% is a physical cause. But I might go to 100 eventually. It's like every year it goes up. Right now I'm at 99, saying you can't go higher than 99. You got to give room for that. Okay. But, you know, I fell off a cliff and I fell 120 feet, and the cliff was called the Waltz.
The waltz.
That, the Waltz.
Okay.
That was the cliff. It was called the Waltz because it was three tiers. One, two, three. And I
Okay, I
fell
get
on
it.
the third step of the waltz. Okay. And I had just broken up with my girlfriend. I was having severe back pain when I went climbing that day. What was I repressing? You
Mm.
know? And then I went and fell off a cliff. So was it an accident or did I actually emotionally induce that cliff?
Good point.
You
Yeah.
know? That's the question. I think, I mean, it's the waltz and I just broke up with someone. How am I going to complete the waltz if my partner's gone?
Mm.
Right?
Wow.
So to
Yeah.
me, it feels to me like I probably set myself up for that on an internal level. Even though appeared like an accident, we got off route. The guidebook wasn't clear. A big tree had grown into the crack we were supposed to go, so we went around this Christmas tree that had grown into the little crack in the rock. When the book was written, the tree was probably this big. Now it was this huge
Wow.
pine filling the crack in the cliff, and we needed to squirm behind the tree and keep climbing behind the tree, but we didn't know that. I always bring the guidebook up every peak. My brother's like, oh, we just go up these three. We don't need the guidebook. I'm like, you sure? He's like, no, I just leave it. I left the guidebook. So I really got set up for this accident in a way. But see, I wanted to bring the guidebook, but I didn't exert myself and say, oh, I want to bring the guidebook. I'm carrying it. You don't have to carry it. But I couldn't like challenge. I didn't make that challenge. So I wasn't standing up strong enough for myself either. And with my girlfriend, there was also issues like that, not standing up strong enough for myself, saying, no, I need this. And with him, I didn't say I need this book. So there was obviously stuff about just being, hey, this is how I need it to be, but it doesn't have to impact you.
Mm.
And I fell off the cliff. So, I think there was more of an emotional basis than an accidental basis, even to that. Now, when something like that happens, you break some bones, you bruise every little part of your body. There's a lot of room to say, oh, I'm hurt and pain for the rest of my life. But the reality is, once it heals, it's over. With something like your father, like rheumatic fever, there are certain conditions that can severely stress an organ to the point that it's not going to function the same.
Mm.
So, like if you're an alcoholic for 20 years, your liver is not going to do the same job it did before. So there are these times when something gets damaged. But then why do you become an alcoholic, right? To suppress your emotions, right? So it's emotional disease again. Now, with something like rheumatic father, well, why did the fever get him? I would bet, and I think I would have a 99% chance of winning, that his emotional state contributed to his fever. He was 16. That's the age of Jupiter, of
Mm,
the maturation of Jupiter. What's going on with his Jupiter?
yeah.
You know, what trauma did he have? What happened to his, what kind of trauma did he have to have this fever?
Yeah.
So like when before people, it's regularly found that before people get cancer, they have a big emotional blow within 6 months.
Right.
And we always need to, when someone comes with the problem, the first question should be, in the last six, have you had any trauma or stress or emotional blows in the
Mm,
last 6 months?
mm,
The first thing I ask someone, and I learned that from home studying homeopathy, it's like these emotional bases are the keys to understanding what's going on with us. So looking at the chart with the Avastas, which is my favorite all-time technique, the Lajitadi Avastas specifically, with the deep Tadi Avastas, we can see things that are getting strained by the environment. Okay. But I don't believe in victimhood,
yeah, neither do
which
I.
means I don't believe the environment can strain us and break us unless we meet the environment with a break.
Hmm.
Okay. Which means we meet the environment with a bad Lajitadi Avasta.
Mm,
So every bad Lajitadi Avasta we have is causing us to take actions that are going to lead to us not being satisfied and fulfilled and surprised by the beauty of life, but frustrated, anger, and bitter.
mm,
So every bout of Ashta has an emotional link to it that's going to end up in a bad feeling. And we are not equipped to deal with bad feelings in a healthy way. The world doesn't allow for bad feelings.
no.
If we think of the bad feelings going on in this world, and you think of how much people need their addictions, whether it's TV, Facebook, sex, coffee, marijuana, cigarettes, alcohol, food, collecting, and we've all been guilty of some of these. Why are we doing that? Because we live in a world where we're simply not allowed to really live out the terror of our emotions without getting locked up and no one wanting to be our friends.
Yeah.
Even the most sane person, the most good person on earth, emotionally life can get so hard and heavy for everyone. How do we're not equipped to know how to deal with that. Our parents didn't give us permission. Our spouses don't usually give us permission, although some people are fortunate that their spouse does. We don't, we have permission, but then it pushes their buttons, and the next thing you know, it's even worse.
Mm,
So it's like, what do we do? There's always something we're not equipped to deal with on an emotional level. That something gets repressed, and the body says, well, okay, where's my outlet? And then conscious says, well, he believes that gluten's bad for him. So he just ate a piece of bread. So now's our chance to let go of some of this pain and
mm,
show him, guess what, dude? You're in severe pain, emotionally. See how much your guts hurt? That's how we feel in here,
yeah. Yeah.
and that's what our emotions are telling us. And we have to become aware of it. We have to not let our body, we have to decide nothing's wrong with my body, become aware of the emotions, and then problem solved. We don't have to vent the emotions. We don't need to tell anyone, but we can. We don't need to change our lives over it, but we can. But we damn well have to feel every drop of emotion, or we're setting ourselves up for disease.
Mm,
So when I do medical astrology now, every avashta, every bad lajitati avashta in the chart is a disease producer
right.
because it's making the emotions frustrated and unhappy, and that's going to cause disease.
Mm,
And then I have to find out what's the worst one. Now, if I want to at that point, I can look at the sign, the plan, and I can work really hard to say, oh, and I think it's going to manifest in this part of their body. But you know what? That doesn't matter because I can tell them, oh, it's your knee. You've got to go get knee surgery. They'll go get knee surgery, and they're like, I went to the best knee surgeon, so my knee's fixed. Now the unconscious like, great, you really believe that, so I'm not going to be able to use your knee anymore. But you know what the good thing is? You got two knees, and your other knee hasn't had surgery. So all of a sudden, so all
We'll
of a
go there
sudden,
now. Mm,
all of a sudden your other knee starts bothering you, right? And you get surgery on that. And then it's your hip. Why is your hip? Well, because your hip's out of alignment because your knee was bad for so long.
Yeah.
And then it's this and it's that. And it travels around the body. So maybe it travels in the skeletal system. Maybe it travels in this system because that system's weak. But that's just the outlet of it. If we deal with our emotions healthily, we will have a 99% increase in health.
Yeah.
And we can eat bread and chocolate.
Yay!
But if we think that chocolate's bad for you or sugar's bad, the minute you have your unconscious, like, okay, great. Now I have permission because they think this is going to make them sick. I have permission to be miserable and give a physical symptom and show them how much emotional pain they're really in.
So
And
interesting.
so that's how my practice has changed from working on a real physical level of massage. Actually, my favorite thing was massage and touch. I was doing all kinds of helping people on the physical level just with touch. Well, guess what? The foundation of our emotional well-being is in touch of the mother. And then forever after that, we're looking to have that replicated.
Yes. Yes.
So no surprise, I had the best result. I had better results with touching people than I had with herbs or stuff, you know?
So why do you think that is? Is it because it's a manual release of the tension in the
No,
body?
because see, the part of us, the emotional part is the child mind of the moon. And the moon ages from 0 to 1.
Hmm.
That's our most important age of our life. Think about it astrologically. We are born at the age of 0, and that's our birth chart, right? It's going to govern our lives. At the same time, we have a solar return or Wasserfall chart of our first year of life, and it's the same as our birth chart.
Really?
So the first year of our life equals our whole life.
Mm,
Now,
mm,
there's a scary thought when you think of some of the shit that happens to people.
mm.
So when horrible stuff happens to people in their first year of life, that horrible stuff happens throughout their lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they don't clean the first year out, which means clean the trauma out of the first year. Now, in this first year, what's happening is we're developing an idea of I'm okay. We feel okay when okay means I'm lovable and I'm wanted and I'm safe. I'm secure. I'm not going to die. That makes us okay. And the baby, if mom says, oh, you'll be okay, baby don't understand that. When mom says, I'll be back in 5 days, you'll be fine with your uncle, baby doesn't understand that. The only thing the baby understands is touch of the mother, especially.
Mm.
Nothing replaces mother's touch. So the mother isn't physically present for even 5 days or emotionally not present because of some trauma. She at 6 months, she finds out the husband's having an affair and she has a freak out for 2 weeks. Serious trauma on that baby now.
Mm.
Okay. Or say her brother dies or her mother dies or something happens. She could be the best mother in the world. And in that, but there's always a time. In the first 3 years is the child mind development. This is the mind that's soaking everything in. The first year is more critical than the second and third years, which are ruled by Mars, the other child mind planet. Okay. Mars is the number one malefic for causing pain in the body for a
Mm.
reason,
Mm.
because it's a child mind planet. And the moon is the planet, is our imagination. Now, what is imagination? It's belief. When you say, I believe this, I believe in God, you're just imagining that.
Mm.
Unless you sat down and had tea with God, you don't know if God's real.
Yeah.
It's just a fancy, it's an imagination. A belief is an imagination that we hope to be true, and one day it'll prove as true or false. But until then, it's a base and element of our imagination. It belongs to the moon, which is the imagination. So our imagination is developed in that first year of life. We imagine this is how life works. And we
Yeah.
believe it's true because of our experiences in that first year.
Mm.
Now, what we want is we want to know we're not going to die.
Mm.
To mammals, mother is life, no mother is death. Now, of course, you can just go buy them baby formula or get some goat's milk, but there was a time where without mother's milk, you were going to die.
Yeah.
So, and then mother is touching. Preemies, like say a baby's 3 months premature, what's
Mm.
the survival rate? Well, there's tribes that when they have a preemie 3 months or any preemie, they just wrap the baby between their breasts and leave them there. And they
Mm.
have a higher survival rate than incubators.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I think about
the
those
word,
Romanian babies, in the orphanages back in the 80s, that.
oh,
Mm.
yeah, all these abandoned children.
Mm.
And so there's a psychological trauma that happens when there's not the correct touch or insufficient touch from the mother, especially.
Mm.
Touch is what makes the baby feel, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to die. I'm going to get fed. It feeds with touching.
Mm.
It's getting touched by a human being when it feeds. You can't just give a baby a bottle and think it's going to be healthy.
No.
It needs to touch mom as much as possible. So, in the first year of life, and then the touch is really critical as it is in the second and third years. And so the child mind is damaged because of lack of touch or improper touch. And therefore it's healed by appropriate touch.
Mm.
Now, some people unfortunately have inappropriate touch later in life, they get raped. That sucks. But usually people get raped. Again, we look in those first 3 years of life, we'll see mirror images of why they attracted that rape. This first 3 years of life is the critical years of life that develops our unconsciousness, where our child mind is being developed. It's all about healthy touch, and that's why touch is so healing. Next, we go to the Mars age, 1 to 3, aka terrible twos. Why is he terrible? Because now he's mobile, right? He's mobile and he doesn't have a brain. You put those together, you've got trouble. When he's just laying there going goo goo gaga and doesn't have a brain, he's not dangerous to himself or others, okay? But now he's mobile. Now you're in trouble. And he can be in trouble too, the baby. So at this point, the child's mobile. He's developing awareness of what he's capable of on a physical level. Okay. He's learning to walk. He's standing up. He can cruise around. He's going to learn to run. He's going to learn to climb. He's going to learn to jump by the time he's 3. But he can't do everything he needs during that time. He still needs a lot of touch. So children that age, when they make their efforts, they need to be touched and supported with the touch. If their parents like, oh, you're mobile now, go crawl into your crib. Oh, you can do it, Johnny. Look how good you are. Yes, you can go up the stairs alone. Oh, yeah, I'm so proud of you. That damages the child. Because the child in those 2 Mars years, from 1 to 3, still needs a lot of touch, especially from the mother. But if mother figures, oh, he's mobile, he doesn't need my touch all the time, could crawl into the crib. Oh, look, you can crawl into the crib. What a good boy you are. Yeah, what a good boy you are, but what a fractured psyche you're getting, because you need support. Mars is our teammates. Who are teammates? They touch us. And when we win, they hug and clap us on the back.
Yeah.
So people who don't get that touch in those years, they don't feel like they have teammates. They don't look for teammates to support them in their life. They're loners and they do everything alone without support. Mm-hmm. And they desperately need touch too,
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about touch, or we call stroking. That's why sex is such a big draw to everyone. Why does everyone feel connected with sex? Because sex is touch. It impacts the child mind. It's the way adults want to be touched, Why is so many people, I need to get money, I need to get my car, I need to get my boobs, I need to get my shoes, I need to get my dress, my face done, my hair done. I have to become powerful, I have to become famous. Why? Because we want touch.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So is it those first 3 years that then affect the health, or is it? I've read studies where it's 7 years for first
Okay, after the first 3 years are the formative years where everything's just in,
yeah.
okay? There's no filters at that point. We're just getting conditioned by the environment to become more or less unokay with ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
more or less unokay with the people around us, depending how they are. There's a
Mm.
whole bunch of information on that. So then we go into the age of Mercury from 3 to 12. Now, one of the first things, I'm sure you've learned this, that we learn as an astrologer, if the moon's afflicted, a person might be mentally ill or crazy, but they also have to have trouble to Mercury.
Yeah.
So you see a bad moon, but a good Mercury, you don't send them to the Lumia then, right? Okay.
Because both rule the mind, don't they? So I have a
Because the Mercury is the sun, the child of the moon, first of all. So
Mhm.
Mercury has a supportive role to the moon. Okay. Mercury is a friend to the moon, but the
Mm.
moon's an enemy to Mercury, you know? Okay, so Mercury is the developing adult mind, the self-aware mind, the mind of awareness, cognizing, thinking, observing, seeing, and through that, finding solutions. So at the age of 3, people start to think for themselves. Now they have a filter. Now that filter gets more developed by 7. It's pretty solid by 7.
Yeah.
From 3 to 7, it's a very thin membrane, this filter, but it's there. And so from the age of 3, we start recognizing, if we pay attention to kids' questions, wow, they're questioning, they're looking and coming up with ideas and solutions. They're working Mercury now. They cannot do that before the age of 3. Okay, they didn't, that planet was not developing.
Yeah.
So the Mercury age is very important. Now, if a person has a trauma in the Mercury age, so essentially what happens is, I have to step back. We get a trauma in the first 3 years of life. We all have some it's more severe. Some people lose a mother at birth. Other people lose a mother at birth and get put into a very bad place. There's a difference in severity there. Okay. One person's mom dies at 6 months, another person's mom, gets sick and goes to the hospital for 2 weeks. They're both severe traumas, but there's a difference to the severity. Okay. One of the big problems we have now in many countries, mothers go to work after 4 to 6 months. That's the most damaging time because
Yes.
the baby's fully bonded and now mom's gone. Every one of those babies is going to have psychotic emotional behavior.
Mm.
If we have a severe separation with mother in the first year of life, the result of that is psychotic behavior.
Do you think that's why we've seen such a rise in ADHD? Yeah.
And all that stuff and
Mm.
all the mental illness. We're breeding mental illness now.
Mm.
And even in the second year, separation from mother will create psychotic behavior. Now, what psychotic behavior is that there's a trauma of being unsafe, in a bad place, scared. And that trauma, a person will get triggered into that. And while the baby's in a helpless state, can't do anything for itself.
Mm.
Life's events, a breakup, losing a job, will trigger that trauma.
Mm.
The same way that a war veteran goes to a party and the popcorn machine goes on, and all of a sudden he grabs his best friend and throws him out the window because at that moment he is fighting the war against, fighting for his life, and just killed his best friend on accident.
Mm-hmm.
That has happened. It's post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm.
We all carry post-traumatic stress disorder from the separation of early life.
Mm.
And as a result, we get triggered. Events in life will trigger us into that state. And so a perfectly fine person goes in a breakdown, they go into psychotic, crazy, do anything, psychotic state, and they don't even remember what they did lots of times.
Mm.
It's a completely unconscious reaction. Just like the war veteran doesn't even realize he threw his friend out the window until somebody tells him, you threw Johnny out the window, because it's completely gets thrown into an unconscious state of mind of feeling helpless and scared and unable and desperate. All the feelings of when the mother was not present. Separation from mother of any traumatic sort in the first 2 years creates a psychotic disorder of some type. There's a doctor who could actually tell based on the psychotic disorder, what month they had the separation from their mother.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Great book. It's called Babies Need Mothers by Clancy McKenzie.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to
Okay.
get.
So then the separation from mother in year 2 to 3 results in not psychotic behavior. Psychotic behavior, your unconscious completely takes over for a short time or perhaps months. Some people get triggered into a state where they are non-functioning for years and have to go into an asylum, right? Okay. Um, into a clinic, because they just can't function. And when, okay, that's just, I have to stop there. Okay. Then from years 2 to 3, if there's separation from mother, people don't fall into psychotic behavior or into psychosis. If they get triggered, they fall into depression. They have separation depression. Say they have a breakup and they're depressed for years over that person. My mother fell in front when I was almost 3. My mother fell down dead in front of me, and I didn't see her for like 5 days. And when we were on our way, we were in Germany, flying back to America on the way to the airport. And we're getting in the car. My uncle was picking us up to take us to the airport. She falls over. He happens to be a gynecologist. He takes one look at her, says she's having a tubal pregnancy and she's about to die. He rushes her to the hospital, cures her. But she's gone for 5 days. I'm living with these strangers I don't even know. I don't know what's wrong with my mom. My dad's not the kind of guy to explain something to some kid because kids don't need to know anything. Just feed them and shut them up, right? And so I don't even remember this, but I'm freaked out. Then, throughout my puberty years, every romantic fantasy I would have would end up with the woman dying.
Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
wow. And then when a relationship would end, I'd be a fully functioning person. I'd be doing all my normal cool shit. I wouldn't skip a beat, but I was depressed. I would be depressed over a person. I was depressed over my first girlfriend, as violent as she was to me, for 7 years. 7 years. At the end, she wanted me to come back. And I said, look, I'm doing astrology now, and you don't like astrology, so I don't want to be your roomie. So I'm just going to stay far away from you.
Good move.
So, yeah. So that our psyche gets set up in those first 3 years in a critical way. If then, in these first 3 years, we have a separation trauma of some type. It's just how severe is it? Okay. Now, that separation trauma is a wall we're holding up. And one day that wall comes tumbling down. It usually comes tumbling down when we fall in love and it ends. And then all that psychosis comes back or that depression comes back, depending on when we had the most severe separation trauma with our mother. And then we break down and then we build the wall back up. But after that, the wall is always easier to break down until we cure the trauma. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so, but it's all based on what happens to us. Now, in those first 3 years, especially that first year of life, we develop the life directing avashtas of our belief system of this is how life works according to my experiences. Okay. According to my experiences, I have a moon starving Mercury, which means that when something was wrong with me, my parent, whoever was parenting me, would come up and say, here, take this. And if I said, that doesn't work, they said, this is what you need, take it. They didn't give me another option. So I had to deal with this option that sucked, that wasn't a good option. Person has a wonderful, delighted Mercury, the adult present who's taking care of them, when they would say, oh, you need a blankie? No. Okay, do you need this? No. Do you need this? Keep giving options until the baby's like, okay, I'm happy now, And so the person with the starved Mercury goes through life thinking, I have no options. I have a belief system that I have to take what I can get. And the astrologer has told me that this guy is not good for me, but I have a moon opposite Mercury, starving Mercury really bad. And he's the only option. So I'm going to marry him anyway. And every 6 months, call the astrologer and say, I think I'm going to get a divorce, but I'm still never going to get a divorce. That's a true story. Okay. That's what happens with moon starving Mercury. So we develop this belief system in these first 3 years. And so then, and one day the trauma is going to come cracking down. Now, if that moment of trauma breaking down happens in the age of Mercury, that's really heavy because the adult mind isn't developed enough to really handle it at all yet. Age of Mercury is from 3 to 12.
Yeah.
Before 7 is more severe than 7 to 12. Okay. So at that point, if the trauma comes that brings up that separation trauma of the mother, if an event comes up, say mother dies in that age, say father dies in that age, say they get into a weird situation. I've seen it where a young woman falls in love with an older guy for one day, and then she's just not, she's prepubescent, but she's still old enough to fall in love, you know? And then he goes out and dies. And he's gone forever. And this is this causes the trauma, the post-traumatic stress disorder, that trauma to be relived in this age of Mercury. That's very hard. That person has way more trauma now because they had a second trauma before they were mature enough to deal with it. What happens in the Venus age is we get over it. It doesn't cause that same scar tissue. And that's why the rule is for people to be crazy, which is psychotic, meaning their unconsciousness is driving them more than their conscious mind. That's all psychotic behavior is. You need a bad moon or troubling moon and troubling Mercury both because it's more severe then.
So,
and then a person's more likely to fall into unconscious patterns, essentially, that are based on feeling helpless, scared, unable, and desperate and lonely.
So the remedies, Ernst, for these sorts of traumas, obviously we can't go back to our childhood and undo them, but like, would you recommend obviously massage and touch, but psychology, hypnosis?
We all benefit from healthy touch. And there's a lot of touch therapies emerging, like touch, NLP related, unconscious work, touch therapies, like EFT and faster EFT, for instance.
Oh, yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay. And then there's all these NLP and hypnosis and EDMR. There's all these therapies that are directed at the unconsciousness. That's what we need to heal the child mind.
Yeah.
So if a person's problem is in the child mind, that's where it needs to be healed. But we have other parts too. So we have to identify what's the real big problem planet. If it's Jupiter, the problem's in the adult mind. If it's Moon, it's in the child mind. Child mind always needs the deepest therapy. But all the planets come out of the Moon. So the Moon is the Manas. Out of the Manas comes the 5 elements, which are the 5 planets. So all the avastas of the other planets manifest actually out of the Moon or experienced in the Moon. So all planets benefit from therapy. Okay. But we can direct the therapy more effectively if we can see what planets are bad. But I really feel that we can tell a person to eat good, they'll get better. We could tell them to do this, they'll feel better. Give them this herb, give them this workout program, they'll feel better. But if they're still playing with their emotions the same way, it'll come back, it'll resurface in a different way. It'll be a never-ending series of pain in their body, of some disease, somewhere, until they work out the emotions.
Yeah.
So my attitude now is, who cares? Why bother with that nonsense? So the minute we say, oh yes, you've got, this problem, so you need to take this and balance your dosha. Now what you've told them is, because your dosha is imbalanced, you get to have this pain, this disease. So the unconscious is like, good. Now I have an outlet that is permissible. I can talk about it and I can get attention. And it's a permissible outlet of my pain. So diagnosing is unhealthy it restricts psychological healing. The old doctors, the old Chinese doctors, they never would tell you what's wrong with you. You come in, they don't talk, they give you an herb. You have faith in that doctor, so you get better. Most healing is placebo effect, Honestly, it really is. If you go to a doctor you believe in, whatever he gives you, you get better. But do you really get better? Like George Vitholkas is the most amazing healer of the century. He's a homeopath. He says, when I say cure, it doesn't mean they're better. Years later, are they doing good with no other diseases? If that happens, he says he cured them. Okay. If not, it didn't finish. Okay.
Yeah.
people have layers of how they'll play emotional games. That we have emotional layers of deceit, and repression, and all these emotional games we play with ourselves and unknowingly play with others as a result. And we have to work through all those layers to finally become to a disease-free state. But we're never going to get to a disease-free state by working on a physical level.
Yeah.
But I think we all could benefit from touch, but we need to remember I need a massage and I feel better, not because it loosening up my muscles, but because maybe I didn't get all the touch I needed. And it's
Yeah.
good to get it. It's a human need to have,
Absolutely.
and put it into perspective. I want to go stretch out because I want to be flexible so I can kick higher, not I'm going to go stretch out so that my backache hurts. Because the minute you say that, you've told your unconsciousness, if I don't stretch, my back hurts. So the unconscious is good. Every day you can't stretch, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make your back hurt.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So we've got this very mysterious, devious unconsciousness looking for areas where we give it permission to cause pain to us.
The mind is so, and the unconscious mind, so powerful. I've been studying hypnosis myself the last few weeks, doing a course in that, and it's incredible. Like you mentioned, the placebo effect and how that works. But yeah, you're so right. It's what's at the core. Where is that coming from, rather than any kind of band-aid solution to problems. So
yeah.
So touch.
And we shouldn't entertain these other ideas. We just need to go to the consciousness, go to the mind. Like I was literally jumping up and down in my room right there all night long, too much pain to think, saying there's nothing wrong with my tooth. Why my face is swelling and I want to rip my tooth out with my hand. And I had to affirm that because that was the truth. What was wrong? I had some heavy emotional stuff that needed to be felt finally. And since then, I haven't had tooth problems. And every once in a while, I'll get a little ache, and then I know, wait a minute, what did I just skip?
Yeah.
What emotion did I just rank? And then I have to dig it up. Pain goes away instantly.
It really requires us to be conscious, doesn't it? To be very sort of almost a bit detached and look at, okay, what's going on here? What's, on a regular basis, checking in with ourselves.
Yeah, you basically have to believe that there's nothing wrong with my body. My body is just signaling where I'm not managing my emotions correctly, or I'm repressing a feeling, not acknowledging a feeling or something in me. So all I have to do, the minute the body hurts, is backtrack 2 steps and say, what happened? Like once I was carrying 2 big, heavy buckets of dirt up the hill in my yard with rocks. When I got to the top to dump it, all of a sudden I think it was my right knee or my left knee it hurt and I couldn't straighten it. Like, oh, great, my knees hurt. I'm like, no, wait a minute. What emotion, what did you just pass? And I said, oh, I was so frustrated. I was imagining this possible situation might happen of me being cornered into a really bad thing. And I don't know how to get out of that. I have a Saturn Mars. Saturn Mars suppresses a lot of feelings and Saturn Mars conjunctions. And I was like, I'm going to have to, I just told myself, okay, I feel it. I don't have to allow that to happen. I have the option of allowing that or not. And if that situation happens, I'll simply say no, thank you, and not allow it. And that all happened within 2 steps. And within 2 steps, the leg straightened, and I kept walking. I didn't say, oh, I have to stop. No way. The minute you stop, you're saying, you're right, something's wrong with my knee. I just kept walking, and within 2 steps, all the knee pain went away because it took that long for those thoughts to go through my head. It's like instant cures. As instantly as they come up, as instantly they can go away.
That is powerful. That's so powerful.
So it's a whole nother way of living, really, with ourselves. Yeah.
So, Ernst, if people want to learn more about this concept and ages, you do teach this. Which do you want to just share about your website where they can go?
Right now, a lot of stuff I talked today is about from a course I've been teaching. We're on video 100 of, I have to finish this course the next few days, I hope. It's basically a Lajitati Avashta based course. This is the 3rd one. All of them have been around 100 videos long. This one's called PAC in astrology, which is parent, adult, child. So in this one, I break down the parent, adult, and child minds. The child mind is what develops under the age of Moon and Mars. They're the
Mhm.
child planets. Then Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus are the adult planets. And Saturn and Sun are the parent mind. So we have a parent mind that's telling us this is what you have to do. And then we have a child mind saying, oh, but I need this and I crave this, and all that matters is I get it and nothing else matters. But the parents mind, oh, but you have to look good, you have to be respected, you have to follow the Bible. This is how the right way to live is. You have to hate Jews. I mean, that's a parent mind thought. Everything we have to do or not do is a parent mind thing. We have all this parent mind nonsense that has nothing to do with who we are. And we have all these needs that the child mind wants to fulfill in a moment's notice in a way that will ruin one's life and hurt other people, you know? And like, for instance, when the child mind is frustrated, hurt, and angry and not getting its needs met, and the parent mind says it's okay to go over to that country and kill everyone and take their stuff, that's when people do it. See, when people go to war and get angry, it's because the child mind's so unhappy, they're not getting their needs met, but they won't go to war and start killing people until the parent mind says, for God, for country, for king, for Allah, it's permissible. You'll go to heaven if you do this. So the minute we give this frustrated, angry child mind permission by the adult mind, that's when we have the travesties of the world, where good
Mm.
people are doing horrible things.
Yes.
Okay. So we see how these minds work, and then the adult mind is the most important. Mercury, Jupiter, Venus. Those are the benefics. The reason the book says a dignified Jupiter, Venus, or Mercury in an angular trine will overcome 1,000 ills. Or 1,000 for Jupiter, hundreds or dozens for Mercury. Jupiter's the best, Venus not as good, but all of those make a critical difference. I don't believe one does more than the other. It's more about the strength. But those are the planets that have the capacity to save us from the troubles of our other planet. How much work do those planets have to do? Well, how much trouble are Sun or Saturn, Moon, and Mars causing?
Yeah.
And their ability to resolve our problems, means our ability to grow out of trauma,
Mm.
is based on the ability of our benefics.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because they're the ones who are going to give the cure. The other planets, the child mind is not capable of a cure. The
Mm.
parent mind is not capable of a cure. It's stuck. Do this, you get this. I know it's true and I won't think differently. That's the parent mind. And some of the things it believes are shocking, but we absorb that
Mm.
and we start believing it because our child mind thinks to please mommy and daddy and get stroked, to get touched, I have to do what they say. I have to please them, which means follow my parent mind. So there's
Mm.
an unconscious force in us that wants to follow this nonsense in our heads about how we're supposed to be.
Mm.
The parent mind has to the adult mind has to re-educate the parent and say, is that really true? Let's think about this.
Mm. Mm.
And the adult mind has to go to the baby, say, I know what you need. I'm hearing what you need. I'm going to work towards getting what you need, but you cannot smash that guy with a barbell because you're in love with him and you don't want him to leave. Because that's what the child mind does.
Mm.
Like Jeffrey Palmer, he bangs this guy because his child mind doesn't want him to leave. He's so desperate not to leave. And his adult mind is not present to say, hey, don't do this.
Mm.
Jeffrey Dahmer's adult mind was never present because he was always somewhat intoxicated,
Mhm. Mhm.
you
And
know?
tell me, is there a difference when we're talking about the child mind between the waxing moon and the waning moon in the chart, and how that
Doesn't
doesn't matter?
doesn't matter. Not
Mm.
in that context.
Right.
In the I mean in the context is the child mind healthy or unhealthy means it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Okay. It does impact the chart, meaning that the growing moon, the waxing moon is a benefic, the waning moon is a
Mm.
malefic. Okay. Malefic just means it's harder in the context of life on Earth. Benefic means it makes life easier on Earth. So
Mm.
as the moon is waning, it's harder to get the things in Earth that we want to work compared to a dark moon.
Yeah.
That's only one part of the story. It's not the
Yeah.
whole picture of the moon. We also have to look at the dig ball of the moon is more important. The ucha ball is important. And also, was the person born a day or night? So if a person's born in the
Mm.
day, it's better to have a waning moon than a waxing moon.
Mm. Okay.
And also above them, there's all these rules. I can't remember them at the moment.
Yeah.
So Just don't just say, oh, it's a waxing moon. I never care if it's waxing or waning, honestly. I never pay attention to it, except in Muhurta. Okay.
Uh-huh.
But waxing moon people have an easier time manifesting their needs in a concrete earthly form
Yeah.
than waning moon people who have an easier time realizing that they have to work out the need within themselves. So waning is more internal, waxing is more external. But in either case, we get the experience we need to heal.
Yeah.
See, we can have a nice worldly experience that helps us heal. We can get the right touch, let's say.
Yeah.
Or we can find something in ourselves that lets us heal. That's more waning moon.
Mm-hmm.
But in either case, we get an experience from the world or from within that helps us heal. Okay. And so mission accomplished either way. So we
Yeah.
don't have to split that hair. So that course where I cover all this parent, adult, child mind and all the avashtas of how the child mind is negatively impacting the adult mind or vice versa, and what's happening with all these different parts of ourselves, I talk about in this course. One of the important things is it's so helpful. If people relate to each other. There's a book that was one of the early books on this idea of parent, adult, child minds called Games People Play.
Ah.
And there's also a great book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. That's more important. That was written after that, okay, by Thomas something. I'm Okay, You're Okay. I recommend that for everybody. So in this book, um, they have dialogues to show how people relate to each other based on both these books, where they're relating child mind to child mind, adult mind to adult mind, or parent mind to a parent mind, or parent to adult, or adult to parent. And so we're constantly relating to people on these different levels. Say we're being romantic and flirty and having fun and being romantic. Now our child minds are relating. Okay. But say we do that. And then I go over to Jessica over here and I get child mind with her. You're not child mind anymore. You're going to get, if we were an item or something, you're going to get parent mind on me. You're going to say, that's not allowed. You're breaking the religion. You're breaking the law. You're my husband, right? I'm just making this up.
Yeah.
So you see, depending on what minds we are with people, we're either their best friend or their worst enemies.
Yeah.
But this person, I use me, but let's not use me. I say a person does that. This person is just being in the child mind with everyone they meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But the people they meet are only in the child mind when they think they're special. And the next thing you know, they're not in the child mind anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using that as an extreme example of how our relationship stays instantly depending on the games we play. What minds are we relating? So you can get two people that find each other. Oh yeah, I hate Trump. I hate the liberals too. And the whole country's going to hell. It's like, yeah, the country's going to hell. They're parent minding. Oh, they need to do this, and this is the right way to run a country, and the world's going to hell. And if they would only listen to us, they'd fix it. And they're like best friends. Parent minds, they're agreeing. But the minute all of a sudden you read that book and like it, oh, that's the worst book ever. I can't do you believe the stuff in that book? All that stuff is untrue. Now they're worst enemies all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So as people engage in different minds, or the child and parent, the child goes, I need this. And the parent's like, you've been a good girl, you can have it. Or it's like, okay, it's your birthday, so of course you get it today. So the child mind's happy and the parent mind's obliging. They're happy. But what if the next day the child mind wants the same thing? The person's like, no, today you don't get it because I have to do this or something else needs to be done. Now the child's not getting what it needs from the parent. And relationships have this where one person can be the child mind more, another person plays the role of the parent mind more. So the child mind's always going to the parent mind. Can I do this? Will you give me this? And their relationship will change depending on how much the parent mind wants to give the child mind stuff. And all those relationships are doomed to failure because they're all based on unconscious forces, unconscious thoughts. The parent mind is full of unconscious programming that has nothing to do with a momentarily here and now reality. It's the adult mind we need to relate to. Adult minds can communicate and they can talk and they can say, I have a need for this. My child mind wants to do this,
Yeah.
And they can say, all right, let's talk about that. Like one example a friend gave me, she gave me this example. It's a great example. She said, yeah, my husband said he wanted to have, oops, what just happened? Okay.
You're still here.
So, okay. My husband said he always wanted to have a threesome. He wants to have a threesome. And I said, that's okay. I understand you need to have a threesome. You want to have a threesome. But for me, no way. I've never wanted to go there. I'm not going to go there. If you want to have a threesome, go find two girls and have a threesome. He goes, no, but I want one of the girls to be you. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. She's like, well, it's not going to be me. Well, he's never had a threesome. So that's two adults communicating.
Yeah.
That's healthy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was blown away. I recently had um, a young couple asked me about their compatibility recently a few months ago, and they were worried. She had Rahu in the seventh, and one of the astrologers in India said, "Oh, you have to watch him sexually and da 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 da."
Uh,
And so we're talking. I'm doing this over the internet with her, and she's like, "Yeah, he said he does want to have a threesome sometime in his life, and you know." We talked about it, and I really want to do that all the time. But then we thought it might be fun just go to Thailand and actually do that because it might be fun for me to experience that one time too. And these were like young Indian kids. I'm like, what has happened to India? But I was like freaking out. What the heck? They're like having this rational adult conversation about possibly satisfying this child mind desire of a threesome. Now, it doesn't matter whether they ever fulfill that child mind or not. What matters is the child mind was expressed and it was communicated. It wasn't condemned. It wasn't
yeah, it was
chastised. Same thing
heard.
with children. When
Yeah.
our kids come, we need to be present and not condemn what they say. We need to say, okay, let's talk about this. Non-judgmental, not parent mind. You sinner, you. How could you want a threesome?
Exactly.
I'm a good Hindu. You're a slut, and da da da. All that is when the parent mind and child minds conflict. But the adult mind is always ready for anything. It can talk about things and say, "Hey, okay, I get it, but this is what works for me. What works for you is what works for you." That's the realm that relationships can work. Then with this one people, I was also had there. She. I said he's not going to have any problems with him. I said, look at your charts and you guys will be totally compatible in the air. I'm not worried about you. And then she told me the story about possibly going to Thailand, right? Then I asked for their handwriting, and it totally blew me away because we can see what the child mind's looking for, and what it's looking for is stroking, right?
Mhm.
Through the handwriting. And for an adult, stroking especially means sex. Okay, yes, we want to be rewarded and we want to be told you're the best this in the world, and we want to get the gold medal and have our ego stroked, but we also want the sex stroke. And so um, I looked at their sexual indications of what their childhood minds and fantasies were, and I could not believe it. They were so identical.
Ah,
I've never seen two people write those things in such an identical way. Like I could have cut it off hers and put it on his and put it in his, and you couldn't have tell the difference. And
wow.
I said, "You guys are perfect for each other sexually. Go do it. Leave me alone." You know. So I was very impressed that they were able to talk about that because
Yeah.
most people aren't able to talk about the needs of their child mind. The child mind needs to be accepted and needs to be loved. That means understood as an adult.
Yeah.
So if we can talk about scary things with our partner, and they can be in an adult mind of
Mm.
having a conversation, being okay with us, then the child mind's happy.
Yeah.
The
It's
child mind
free.
feels safe.
Yeah.
The child mind feels secure. And then usually people are they're close and they'll touch while they do this. The child mind's getting touched. So now the child mind is happy. It doesn't need to have a threesome all of a sudden. You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
So only the adult mind can heal. Only the adult mind can heal ourselves, and only the adult mind can heal others. Only the adult mind can heal our relationships.
So do you think
Some people
that
have
what
functioning
people,
adult minds, some people don't.
yeah. So people need a safe space to be honest and real with who they are.
And
Whether
we
they're,
only can do that with an adult.
yeah. So if people don't have a partner, if they're single, like a good friend or a psychologist or
Yeah,
someone where
anybody,
they can feel
anybody.
like it's okay to be me, like you were saying.
Yeah, and there's a person that they can get to and talk to anytime that person's in the bathroom, right where the mirror is.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the most important person. The same way we need to have adult conversations with people, we need to have with ourselves. It's our adult mind that learns to become aware of the emotions.
Mm, mm,
Is our adult mind that says, wait a minute, I have pain. That means I suppress the emotion. I'm going to get sick
yeah,
or ill, or my cancer is going to come back. So let me find that
yeah,
and let myself hear it and live with it and accept it, not act on it. Don't need to get the threesome. Just be aware of the feelings. And now the child mind's feeling, I have a safe place.
mm, mm,
It just wants a safe place. When the child mind doesn't get a safe place, it starts going to extreme places
mm, mm,
in an effort to find some level of connection. Psyches that haven't had healthy connection seek extreme connection.
mm, mm.
So the guy who wants the threesome and the woman who has to be the most beautiful woman in the world that every guy sees when she walks into the room. They've had so little touch connection growing up that they're desperate to get more. They go to extremes. The junkie who needs the needle to connect to the universe,
Mm, mm.
is suffering the same thing. So if we don't learn to connect healthily with our own adult self, our own higher self, essentially,
Yeah, yeah.
then we eventually start needing to go to extremes of connection. The most extreme, of course, is serious hardcore drugs.
Mm, mm. Of course. Yeah. Well, Ernst, I'm conscious of time and
Yeah,
how long
I
we've
think we
been
talked
talking.
enough.
Yeah. But it has been so wonderful to explore this topic. And if people want to do the course, they can go to astrologyvideos.com.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
And
the
that's why I do medical astrology these days,
so
is just focus on the psyche.
yeah, yeah. And I do want to wrap things up with a final question because it's been ticking around in my brain while we've been talking. You mentioned initially that you went to the astrologer, you drove 700 miles to have your chart read, and she just taught you how to do charts. I'm curious, what did she see in your chart that told her you were going to be an astrology teacher?
Our teacher, she said that what she said was, she goes, you have Saturn, Jupiter in opposition, and Jupiter's moving faster than Saturn,
Ah, right. So,
which is unusual. Usually Saturn moves faster than Jupiter, or slow. It's usually Jupiter moving faster than Saturn.
mhm,
So
mhm.
it's because I had this opposition, and Jupiter was moving faster than Saturn.
So therefore Jupiter, the guru, the teacher would
I
be
guess is
stronger.
gaining prominence over Saturn
Yeah.
because we need help with our Saturn issues. So maybe because Saturn, my Jupiter was moving slower than Saturn. No, yes, it was moving slower. Usually Jupiter moves faster.
That's correct. Yeah.
Because my Jupiter was moving slower than Saturn, my Jupiter had an edge on Saturn, and I didn't need the Jupiter to help many other people to help my Saturn so much.
Right. Okay.
So, and I mean, what astrologer looks at speeds of planets, you
I
know?
know that's very intricate,
You're
isn't it? What
very
about
good.
like a retrograde Jupiter would in aspect to Saturn, would that have a similar effect because it's
You
moving
bet,
faster?
because yes, if it's and they had she said it was the opposition, but yeah, retrograde.
Yeah.
I think my Jupiter is retrograde, actually.
Okay. So wow. Okay. So's
I
mine.
think it was
So there we go.
basically the Jupiter retro, Saturn next to the Sun, Jupiter relatively opposite the Sun, and Jupiter and Saturn opposition. So
They
that's what she said in the first consultation. And she never mentioned that when I saw her the next day. She just taught me how to calculate the chart.
and away you went. And the world hasn't been the same since.
Well, hopefully the world will like the Aditya symbology because it's really fun. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish this year.
Yeah, I'm looking
It's,
forward to that myself. Ernst, thank you so much for your time this afternoon
no,
where
thank
you
you
are,
for
this
your time.
morning where I
I
am.
think we had too much fun and stayed too long.
Well, hopefully people out there have fun and enjoy it with us because that's
Sure.
the whole idea. But we'll have to do catch up another time, because this has been
Definitely.
fantastic and I've really, really enjoyed chatting here and exploring all these topics. So again, people, if you're watching, the link is in the description below if you want to do a course with Ernst or watch his upcoming sessions on YouTube. The YouTube link will also be in the description below. But for now, thank you, Ernst, and we look forward to having you back again at some point in the future.
All right. Great to spend some time. Okay. Namaste. Bye-bye.